Good evening. You're listening to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting from the Pinellas Palace just west of Orlando, Florida, in the Extreme Studios. I have RDV from the Great Midwest joining me tonight. We're going to be discussing 1959 film from Hammer's House of Horrors. Or actually, I think that's the comic book RDV that they would do. But Hammer Films, of course, The Mummy, starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And I'll just start by saying, I'm a mark for Hammer and John Carpenter. Those are my big two things. When I rewatched this movie yesterday, I said, I don't ever think about it. And I know, and I always tell everybody, watch a Hammer films. They're lush. They're seductive, meaning they're very just visually stunning to me. I don't know what it is, but one day we're going to have to do a separate stream when I'm off this Hammer orgasm and just talk about how incredible set pieces are when it comes to film, even though they're fake as opposed to CGI, because I tell you, this is one damn good looking film. And I enjoy this version of The Mummy rather than the original black and white one, which
the 1931.
Yeah, people put that
Universal.
in two. I like it, but this one just for me it touches me emotionally that the other one doesn't.
This is a first watch for me. When I watched before this was a couple years ago was the 1931 Universal one with Boris Karloff as the Mummy, and seeing Peter Cushing as the guy on the right, and then you have Christopher Lee in muck and bandages. I was like, I don't know what it is. I think it's just Christopher Lee to me is just a better actor than Boris Karloff. I know that might be like a hot take, but I just when they finally get to the whole thing where he reads his dad's journal and he reads the whole thing about the story that the 3,000 whatever how many years old the tale is, but basically how Christopher Lee's became the
flashback scene.
And he reads it and he tells the whole tale. And you get to see it's like, this guy wasn't so in love with his queen. He was going to try and use this scroll of life to bring back her back to life, but he's interrupted. And because he violated, or so sacrilegious, for what he did.
Yes.
Going in her tomb, they decided to basically give him a living curse. Where basically they put him in a tomb, wrapped him up in bandages, and they put him in a coma-like state. For all these thousands of years. And it was Peter Vincent, but no, Peter Cushing's dad who went in there, disturbed, the tomb. And it was just, he was basically went to
the shenanigans begin.
It's of course you have the evil Egyptian guy in here who is basically gets control of the mummy versus the Boris Karloff one, which was different because he was actually becoming more and more human along the way, and he wanted the guy's wife. In this, I loved it because you have the actress and the beautiful actress, the late Yvonne Furneaux.
Yeah, she died. Plays 98 years old last year. Beautiful.
She died last year. Yeah. She plays Isobel Banning, basically Peter Cushing's wife, and then she's also a Princess Ananka, who Kharis was in love with. So it was by her letting her hair down and everything and speaking was able to kind of pause him and also command him, break the spell that this guy had over him. He's holding the scroll because the guy basically was mad because they came in and disturbed the tomb. So he's like, he basically felt like what they did was just horrible. So he wanted to basically send the mummy after they kill him one by one. He lost his dad and his uncle. And then it went after him and only stopped because he saw, the Peter Cushing's wife. But getting the scenery though, as far as everything, I watched this one. This one was in color. It was never in black and white. Where the other one, 1931, I watched the colored version. I know it was originally in black and white. But there's the thing about Hammer. Hammer takes the time to make the sets look really, really good. Where I felt Universal kind of just rushes through it. They care more about the monster than they do about everything else.
It's an interesting observation because one of the key things, two key points I would make to anybody listening as far as Hammer films and Universal films, and what's I'd like to talk about in the public domain, stories like this, is that one, not the same. Don't think this is going to be the same story. They're not that way. Just like the Mummy with Brendan Fraser isn't, right? There's some similarities, but not. And to me, when you watch an old film in black and white, we've talked briefly about how whatever conglomerate that owns a media company that has the current rights to it will censor it and do stuff with it, and they may colorize it and do different things, right? Edit it. You don't really know which version you're getting. And to me, the old black and white films in general, like if we watched Humphrey Bogart films, for example, most of them black and white. I don't want to see that shit colorized. It was such a huge topic in the 80s when we started seeing some of that happening, that it really made a lot of the people, the old generation that grew up on it, kind of explain, no, everything's set to be black and white, the lighting and all that. And when you colorize it, you can't just flip on a switch and make it right because of the way the director sees it, the makeup, the lighting and all that, the set pieces. I think your take on a set piece is interesting because the black and white of Universal has its own charm to me that I do like, right? Especially like the Wolfman. So it's incredible, Dracula. But there's something about the richness of what Hammer does that makes it its own. And I've often said about watching television from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or even occasionally the James Bond film where a lot of attention is paid to suits and the backgrounds and all that. The background stuff could be way too busy. And if you're wearing a nice suit, I've always said if it distracts you from looking at the person's face, it's not the right suit or pattern or color combination. What I think you're absolutely right here about is, especially on the first watches with Hammer sets, is that we know they're set pieces. We know they're like the really, really good, like a haunted house walkthrough kind of thing. But somehow just the net sum of them, especially like the beginning scene where, like you say, he's there with his father and they're digging up the tomb and all that. You know it's a fake thing. You can see the giant kind of wall in the background with like the painted trees on it and all that. But somehow I think the seriousness of these British actors and the way they talk, and this is a bit of a wordy one, they talk a lot. And it just you get sucked into it, and that's the whole point.
Boris Karloff did in his 1932 version. Boris Karloff, those eyes he has as Dracula, and when he's in The Mummy, was really good. I think what really sets up these two movies apart is the fact that I didn't think Zita Johann was really that beautiful compared to Yvonne Furneaux. I almost got confused because I was like Peter Cushing's wife in here. I thought the actress was the same girl from that was in the other one we just watched with Dracula, Christopher Lee, the bride at the beginning who bites Harker in the neck.
Right.
I thought it was the same girl because sometimes a lot of movies they use the same actors.
Yes.
So I almost thought it was her because she has that sultry kind of like look and almost like Elizabeth Taylor look, in a sense.
And I'll say too, you mentioned Bela Lugosi with Dracula that he has, I think he was Hungarian, so he had a really thick accent when it comes through, and you could say whatever about his look. And we think of the Count from the Muppet Show being based off of him, right, with the monocle and
Boris Karloff playing the Frankenstein and everything. So these are phenomenal actors.
Absolutely, it's not to take them away, but they're different. So I don't like to. If I had to compare him, I have to go with Christopher Lee because one, he's like 6'4", 6'5". He's got an incredible background. He carries himself like an old prince. And so even though he's wrapped up here and all that and doesn't necessarily have a lot of screen time as the Mummy, he has equal amount, when they do the flashback. It's still impressive. And as a kid, I have to say this. When I watch Christopher Lee move and do his stuff, even though we know it's a movie as a kid, somehow it was just scary to me as opposed to the Bela Lugosi ones, which were not scary, but I didn't laugh at them. But more about the Hammer films because they treat them so adult-like. There's just that tinge of fear to them.
Big difference. And when it comes to this one, the Mummy's being controlled. You go to the 1932 Universal horror movie, Mummy. He's not being controlled. He's in control, and he basically wants a human, and he wants to take the guy's wife, as his own. Because he looks just like and he wants to basically make her just like his ex girlfriend or whatever for the priestess from back in the day, kind of similar to a little bit to the Brendan Fraser with Les Camp.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. When The Mummy came out in '99, immediately I went back to these two Universals to kind of compare them all because those are the big three that you think of, and I think the Brendan Fraser ones are fun movies and they weren't done bad, and the CGI at the time was acceptable. Well, I mean, but at the same time too, when they had the scene of basically the similar love story, in the ancient times, they had an illicit affair and blah blah, and then she found out that whatever. You're like, okay, but they dumbed it down for kids, and when I say dumb it down, it's not stupid, but it's a fun, campy kind of like.
They made it more adventurous, turned it into an adventure movie,
and it was fine for
these are thrillers.
Exactly.
And I know, so I said I like both versions, like even the Brendan Fraser one. I always like them because I love like Indiana Jones. I love that kind of stuff. So when I look at the Brendan Fraser one, I think that's more like a supernatural mix with Indiana Jones. But it's not Harrison Ford. You're getting Brendan Fraser, so it's a little more camp, yes. But getting back to this though, this is a thriller kind of, and it reminds me of the Frankenstein, Curse of Frankenstein, and all that stuff. The whole they do storytelling. It's in a small town or village or somewhere. I'm not sure where it is, but it's somewhere in London, I guess. These guys who basically are like would be your normal guys. You remember even the one you're like, oh, I want you to carry this corpse here in this wagon. They're two drunkards, so they go and they're basically tasked to carry this crate. We all know the mummy's in there. But they're too snookered up and drunk, so they go in there, and all of a sudden they go past where the guy's nursing home is, and they hear a scream in there, and they kind of get spooked, so they keep going, and they're too drunk as it is. They don't even tie down the crate, so it bounces off and slides into a bog and sinks.
This set piece is incredible to me.
Yeah, the bog and everything. We know about bogs is that they're still finding people in the bogs. They're like basically like tar pits, and they well preserve things. So. I always thought that was kind of fascinating too when I read about bogs and all the stuff they find in there. They pull it out eventually. But anyway, these guys basically the cop shows up. He's remember like the same kind of freaking cop that was in the Invisible Man, Universal, a heavy set guy who really doesn't really do much.
A portly fellow.
Yes, a portly fellow with a tall hat, and he takes a report and everything. And the guys and so then. These guys go on their way, but before they go on their way, the guy who basically was supposed to deliver shows up, and he wasn't even angry. and that was kind of confusing. They're like, why isn't he angry? Of course, he's wearing the Egyptian fez. So,
fez is familiar.
yes. Yeah, but I think a fez to that. But but. Yeah, so he's like the main villain in this is in 1959, played by I think it's George Pastell. Mehemet is the guy's name, Mehemet Bey. And anyway, he wants to basically get revenge, for everything, and he's using the scroll of life, and he basically makes the mummy do everything for him. And there's an inspector comes along, eventually starts interviewing everybody, and he finally after talking to Peter Cushing, he's like, you know what? I shouldn't believe you, but everybody's been saying there's a guy in bandages. He's like 10 feet tall. And then the fact that this guy, there's the Egyptian guy up there who just happened to be moved over here, just before your dad's murder. And
I'll do some racially profiling.
Yeah. he's like, but what am I going to do up there? I can't accuse him of anything, just for living up there. So they do a sting operation, kind of like, because Peter Cushing's going to go, he's going to go up there regardless. So he sends Peter Cushing up there, and they basically get information on the guy. So then after Peter Cushing basically confronts him casually, and the guy doesn't really mean anything, he goes back to his place, the return, waiting for the mummy to attack him a second time. And of course, he's got the cops there and everything. But of course, because everybody's standing in the bushes, the big heavy set, the
portly fellow
gets cheetah chopped in the back of the neck, and he's knocked out after setting his gun down. And then, of course, we have Peter Cushing's wife out there too, and and she was waiting with the cop, but the cop decided to go around the front, part, and he gets knocked out, cheetah chopped in the back of the neck, and I'm thinking like, is he dead? Because he got clubbed pretty hard. Remember, it's like, and so he goes in, and he finally wakes up only after hearing the commotion, because the bad guy goes in there with the mummy, and they're in there, and this is the first part with the poker. The second part is later, but so he's already put two, and then he's put two holes, a couple holes in the body with a shotgun, and everything, and he's getting choked out the second time. His wife runs in, and he's like, woman, put your hair down so you can recognize it, because the portrait only remembers to put his hair down because she had her hair in a bun. He's like, you're gonna kill me. So she puts her hair down and she confronts the mummy. And I love this because the bad guy's like, no, you listen to me. I got the paper. And he's like, I don't care about no stinking papers, man. And he goes to the girl, but only after taking out the bad guy. And he grabs the scroll, and he's carrying the girl out to the bogs, and they're like, "Where's he going?" He's like, "I don't know where he's going." So they go back to the swamp, and they're able to save her after by calling her, wake her up. But then I love this. They're like, "Okay, man, just shoot him." I'm thinking like he's undead. Like, unless you're gonna have a gun that's gonna blow his hand off in chunks and stuff.
Well, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail,
but,
right?
But they nailed it though. Because she's able to get a free, after she ordered him to shut her down, and she's able to go over, and they keep shooting him. Eventually, he just goes in the water, and you see him holding the scroll, and his hands. It's like Jason, the hands going down with the whole scroll, and that's kind of how it ends, like, lads, But overall, the scenery was really cool. Especially the bar. I love the bar. When we first meet the two guys, the wagon, they're drunk, and the guy keeps asking questions. He's like, "I want a fucking drink, man." Every time he goes to take a drink, the guy asks questions, so he has to pause. And the whole atmosphere, it just reminds me of Peter Cushing with the Dracula movie. You go in the small little inn and stuff. I love the atmosphere. It's so authentic.
They're really able to do that well. And one of the things too is that, like, kind of going back towards the beginning when you talk about the sets.
Yeah.
I think one of the main issues is that, like I say, if you're going to do something, be committed to doing it. So when I talk about a movie like, I think it was Weapons that came out a month or so ago, and I still don't talk about it, but it was just a tremendous ending. It absolutely fits. Yep. I was, sending out pictures off Twitter of, like, I don't know, it was like a cheese grater or whatever.
Cheese grater, yes.
And all that. And the point is, if you don't know what I'm talking about when you see the movie, it makes sense. But the point is, they're fully committed to the way they were choosing to do the denouement, as they say, the finishing touch, the ending, how it's supposed to go, right? And one thing that Hammer, I've always thought, made up for very well for making lower budget movies like this. They are very professionally done. You've got great actors in it, but they sell you on how they're trying to do it. And this is why I've always talked about, as shitty as the Halloween movies really got or whatever, I'm still a fan of it. And if nothing more, because Donald Pleasance carries them. Who's a phenomenal actor. He's phenomenal in just everything he's done. Obviously,
Peter Cushing carries this whole movie for me.
The more you watch Peter Cushing, the more I don't go, oh, he's that wimpy guy in Star Wars. Because I saw Star Wars, kind of went, oh, but this is the same guy from Star Wars, right?
Here's the other thing, though. Christopher Lee. Okay, I might ask you a serious question. Christopher Lee's Mummy, or we have, I believe he was also, who was the Frankenstein in the Universal one? Is that Boris Karloff?
I think so.
Both guys using their eyes for expression. What do you think is better as far as
Boris Karloff was a creepy bastard, and if not for him, I don't think somebody like Christopher Lee ends up doing all this stuff. I don't think Hammer necessarily does what they do, right?
Like I said, I really love the Frankenstein movie.
But Christopher Lee has, partly because of height, partly because of his background with MI5 secret agent kind of stuff and all that. He was related to, I think, somehow the original James Bond Arthur. Yeah. Seriously, the way he carries himself, he's very stately, princely. And I always said that the Hammer thing was our version, from the 50s going on, of the instead of just a Boris Karloff presenting him as a feral animal, now he's a suave, sophisticated guy that's going to fucking kill you. You're like, oh man, I can't. Very dangerous kind of guy.
Yeah, like I said, the night that Colin Clive. I was asked yesterday, who's my favorite monster? And I said, like, I really don't have a monster. I'm more a fan of Colin Clive, the guy who played Henry Frankenstein. I thought he outshined Boris Karloff and everything in that whole entire movie in the original 1931 Frankenstein. His
modern day people that are in a comedy, I would call that Robin Williams energy or Chris Farley energy, because it's cocaine and it's basically being ADD kind of like thing. But this guy was dying and just manic. That was the whole point. You saw that. Yeah,
he was an alcoholic. He was constantly had to stand him up so he could tell his lines. He was drunk, and it because he was tired and drugged up and stuff. It came across like very desperate. So when he basically came crazy, and the whole story with it, I thought that Henry Frankenstein was better than the actual Frankenstein monster. But when it comes to them, as far as monster movies, I'm trying to think of like, what is my favorite monster character? I've always said the Mummy to be, because I watched the first movie of Boris Karloff, and I hated that movie. I didn't really hate it, but I mean, it's a one and done. I'll never watch it again. It was ultimately boring to me. This I was dreading going into it because I was like, "Hope please be better." You know, the first one was 1932. Now we're 1959. Hopefully, you know, we've done better, and it was just way better. I mean, it's Peter Cushing's acting in here. His limp, because when they first got the tomb, he had broken his leg, but they stayed there because they didn't go. He gets his leg set. So sorry. So now he has a limp, and I love he keeps the limp the whole entire movie.
Yeah, he sells it. He sells the injury.
It's not like WWE where you forget which leg, you know.
Yeah.
And just his acting, and I'll say this: I like Peter Cushing over Peter Vincent any day. I love Cushing. He's just a great actor.
Yeah, and I tell you, the one thing I don't normally write a lot of notes down here because I usually know what scenes I'm going to talk about. But the only thing I wrote down here in quotes because I wanted to get this out, is I wrote green light. Because again, with the set pieces, my favorite stuff here, I always love Hammer because they're the set pieces. Everyone dresses like they're important. They're dressing in suits. They've got the cufflinks. They're tailored. They look professional, whatever it is. Even the innkeepers, I call that an innkeeper wardrobe. I don't know how to explain it, right? But then the green light when they first discover the tomb, and we see that same kind of thing. I go, that's so simple. But even though I'm sitting there with my adult brain looking at it going, okay, that's just an overhead light. It's probably a 60-watt incandescent, whatever. I'm going, but it's still effective. It just works. And those things don't ever not work, if that makes sense.
Having Terence Fisher direct this, he did before. He did Dracula in 1958. Then before that was Curse of Frankenstein. And then he continued being like the number one, Hammer film director. And it was just awesome. And like I said, the quality of every Hammer film I've watched so far with the monster stuff has been on par with one another. So
two quick points here too as we finish up. This is why with Tom Cruise, it didn't know if it wanted to be a thriller or an action movie. You've got to pick one. That's why you fucked up.
Well, they tried to do this. They tried to do the sexual overtone with him with the princess, whatever, like wanting to be with him. But and
that's fine, but don't have that stupid ass sidekick and everything else. Pick one or the other. You just can't do it, right? It would have been better if you'd been one note, Mr. McQuarrie. The other thing too is even though it's a simple method, the way the story's told, and it's a bit wordy and all that, where you hear stuff. I think I always like having the person that is not I'm not going to say a guardian angel one way or the other, and I don't know that this is particularly religious, even though it's about Egyptianology. Is that the guy that at the beginning of the tomb that warns them about, he who robs from the desert will die, and he's the one who ends up controlling them. I don't consider him the bad guy. He's just a protector of the ancient evil, so to speak. So you can take that a lot of different ways. But of course, you see that like Friday the 13th with the guy on the bicycle and other things in a way too, the warning guy, right? And I think finally, what I'll just simply say this: out of all the mummy movies, this to me is my number one. It's not even close. I agree with you about watching some of these things. Every time I watch it, I kind of see something new a little bit, even though it's not that difficult of a watch. Best scene to me is the actual flashback, which a lot of people think it slows down, but that's where you see everything. You see the best pieces. You see how beautiful the woman is. You see Christopher Lee when he's young and getting the talk and tall and all that. He has presence. This definitely would be worth seeing, on a big screen.
So we're gonna see this guy again. You guys have already reviewed it, but from Russia with Love, George Pastell was the train conductor in that.
There you go.
He was also in Maniac in 1963, and then he just kept appearing in other Hammer films and stuff like that, to British television. It's kind of cool. So, final thoughts is if you've never watched this, if you can, I don't know if right now we're going around Halloween coming up. We're recording this before Halloween, a week before Halloween. If you haven't gone to Walmart, check it out. They might have the Hammer films. I know they have the Universal films collected on Blu-ray.
There are many Hammer collections out there.
Yeah. So check them out. This is just fun. And like I said, Peter Cushing and the expression, his everything, his accent from everything, the way he carries himself. We got Christopher Lee once again, even though he doesn't say a word for most of the movie, except for when he was, later on, he has his tongue cut out because he couldn't talk, and
love it.
Expression through his eyes, his facial, it's just so great. and him walking, and he's got the fireplace poker clear his body, and I'm thinking like, oh, it would have been a much more gore movie if he would have grabbed the girl and hugged her and just speared her, you know.
Yeah.
But,
remember, Britain had a big time censors back there. That's why they really
Yeah.
really tried to push the edge when it came to it.
So,
Not that they wanted to be a big TNA kind of thing, but again, they wanted
Yep.
to appeal to the mature audience.
so, all right, then, you guys. If you guys are watching this on Halloween, have a happy Halloween and stay safe. And check out more of our playlists. The Hamler, you and Professor Pixel, Rob and them, they did a podcast they did a couple years back. So I wonder, we're just kind of reviewing them with me for a little bit for now, because there's a lot of ones I haven't watched, but you guys just went through them. So and I know it's been like a couple of years since you watched this. So
yes. Yeah, definitely go check it out. It's definitely worth a watch. I'm happy that you liked it, because I know you're not the biggest fan when it comes to this kind of stuff. But Hammer never disappointed me.
The only one I didn't like is the Vincent Price one where we at the Theater of Blood. I wasn't a fan of that. I think that was Hammer, wasn't it?
I don't know. I got to have to look it up. I understand. They're not all
It was
A's.
kind of like very eccentric, and I was just like watching. I was like, it's like a Don Quixote horror movie to me. It doesn't make
Good
sense.
night now.
Later, guys.